Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I am so excited because I have again with us Clint Weldon, and I just want to give you a little bit of information about him. Of course, I will have all the links to his website and all that good stuff, his YouTube channel. But first, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us at Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. This is the place where hopefully we can help you discover your truth. Today, we're broadcasting on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Please be sure to connect with us. Make sure you leave any comments, questions in our YouTube channel or any platform that you're able to see us on. And again, we have with us Clint. Clint Weldon is a photographer, an artist, and the host of Night Shift, which is an ongoing project exploring society and culture at the intersection of extraterrestrial contact and catastrophic climate change and artificial intelligence. He streams thought-provoking interviews with leading experts, researchers, and activists. His show, Night Shift, which I will have the links to, so make sure you head on over and check out his website and his YouTube channel. His content is absolutely awesome. And through it, he offers a compelling journey into the UFO phenomenon, inviting listeners to challenge their understanding of reality and expand their intellectual horizons. Weldon's unique approach to engaging with diverse voices and ideas cultivates an environment of curiosity and critical thinking, essential components in advancing our comprehension of these enigmatic subjects. And with that, I welcome Clint. Clint, how are you here?
I'm doing great. I'm doing much better after that intro. That was awesome.
I have to have at least a minute or two to brag about how much I love your content. Sometimes it gets me in trouble because like at 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm sitting there watching it and I just get so wrapped up and I can't shut it off.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
I love the way you communicate with your listeners too, like on your lives. It's so engaging and so interesting and thought-provoking. So while we're talking about that, I want to show folks, I might as well share with them. Let's see. Let me present this. So that's your YouTube channel. So everyone, you can see, let me scroll a little bit so you can kind of get a good idea for some of his content. Every one of his lives or videos that are pre-recorded are so interesting and thought-provoking. He has a wide array of guests. So make sure you check out his videos and the live. Because I think a lot of people forget, Clint, to hit the live tab.
Yeah, and we do 2 lives a week. That's actually the kind of the core of what we do. And then we do other videos in between, but a live on Monday, every Monday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then on Friday, same time.
Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating because I think a lot of folks forget about that live tab. So make sure you check that out. You also have a members section, right? Clint, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we do a few things with our membership. I mean, the core idea of the channel is just to kind of create a space where regular people can come have substantive, interesting conversations about the reality of what we're finding out is the craziest truth of all, that we're not alone. And not only that, but they appear to be here and they're doing stuff. So what are they doing and why, and how does that affect us? And, the whole UFO UAP space is so big and there's so much to it. And I think a lot of people are looking for an on-ramp to try and figure out, like, well, where do I begin? How do I start understanding this very complicated topic? They're seeing little bits and pieces of it in the news, but if you haven't been studying this for 25 years, you probably got some catching up to do. So that's what we try to do. We try to create a space for that conversation, and we try to bring relevant guests that can come add something to that dialogue, and we try to get people involved.
Yeah, I love it. And I love how you like pause to read folks' comments and then, you bring them into the conversation too. So that's like really important to do. So as you saw, there's so much to talk about. And I love the analysis that you did on the recent whistleblower. So we're gonna get to that. But first, I wanted to talk to you about because I had a few people ask me when I mentioned your ayahuasca experience, and they were like, I want to hear more about that. So can we dig into that for a few minutes? I guess a lot of people are interested in that topic, and maybe they want to try it themselves or just delve into what it is. So for folks that don't know, ayahuasca is a botanical, I guess it's called a decoction, which is a liquid resulting from a concentration of heating or boiling from plants. And it's known to give like a hallucinogenic, euphoric kind of alter your consciousness kind of vibe. So let's just delve into your experience. What prompted you to do it, and what was it like for you?
Well, it's like, that's such a big question. It's like, where do you even start? Ayahuasca is, the way I discovered it, I think as with many people, was through a researcher by the name of Graham Hancock. And Graham Hancock I think he was on Joe Rogan. This is many years ago, and he was talking about ayahuasca, and he was explaining that it's a very sacred brew that indigenous people in South America drink to basically visit the other world, the next world, or the other side, if you will. And you, through ingesting this brew, you can, and preparing properly and doing all of the different things that you have to do to get ready for it, both mentally and spiritually and physically, you can sort of, I think the best way to explain it to someone who hasn't had it, you can sort of travel across worlds, and you can visit another realm where you will interact with intelligent beings that are not human. They're not you. They're not coming from inside your own head. These are outside things that you can't normally see. And you can bring back information that's useful to you in this world. So that was sort of that's the elevator pitch. And at the time when I was, it was in my mid 30s, and I'd kind of come to a crossroads in my life where I wasn't really where I thought I would be. I think, like most people, you get to a certain point in your life and you look at where you expect it to be and where you are. And, if those things aren't in alignment, it can cause some stress. And that's kind of where I was. And I think on a deeper level, I was just looking for answers. I was just I'd been running the rat race. I'd been working the grind. I had been doing everything that you're supposed to do to get ahead. I wasn't feeling like it was really resulting in anything. And I felt like the sort of just the overwhelming stress of the world was starting to become, it was clouding everything else. And I just didn't feel like I found that I had lost the thread. I'd lost the spark. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And my wife, who's Peruvian, knew that I was interested in ayahuasca, and I had, had read all these different books, and I had kind of prepared myself mentally for it. But one day she came up to me and she said, "Hey, next time we're in Peru, I found a group that does ayahuasca retreats, and I signed you up for one, so you can go." And I was just as surprised as she was, but I was like, "Okay, well, I would love to." So I went. And the process of prep for me, you work with a shaman. You work with a shaman this was in Cusco, who designs the ceremony and sets everything up. And about 2 weeks in advance, really, when you first sign up, they want a full breakdown of any medications that you're taking, your health situation. This is a very serious substance. When you take it, you're going for a ride, and it's not an easy one.
Yeah.
Not for many people. For many people, it's not. For some people, it is. For me, it wasn't. So they want to know, what's your medical history? What kind of medications are you on? Is there anything that might interfere with the ceremony that you can't, and they'll turn people down. So fortunately, I didn't get turned down, and they said, okay, well, for 2 weeks minimum before the ceremony, you can't have any meat, can't have any sugar, no refined carbohydrates. Basically, you can have plants, you can have some fish, you need to drink clean water, but mostly no caffeine, none of that.
Oh, that's tough.
I know. The caffeine was the one that got me.
Yeah.
Everything else I could do, but the coffee. Oh.
Right.
So I take the 2 weeks, I do the prep, and that's to purify your body and to kind of just get you into a mental state where I think more than anything else, it's to show that you're really serious about doing this.
Yeah.
It's something you have to take. It's a very powerful hallucinogenic compound called DMT that's inside this substance. Your pineal gland makes DMT every night when you dream.
Right.
And ayahuasca activates that system by putting a lot of DMT into your system all at once. But it's done so in a way that your body can't break it down. Like normally, if you would just ingest DMT, it wouldn't survive your stomach. It wouldn't make it into your bloodstream.
Don't people do DMT? Like, isn't that a separate kind of drug? Because I hear people tell me, or is it the same?
DMT is the drug. That's the molecule. They call it the spirit molecule. In fact, there's a documentary called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, about a doctor named Rick Strassman who studied DMT and found that they brought people into a controlled lab setting and they would give them an injection of DMT. Now, DMT is made inside your body. Everybody has DMT inside your body. In fact, it's in most things. It's in grass. It's in a lot of things. It's not an uncommon molecule, and it's not created in a lab. It's a very natural thing. It's inside your brain right now. But they brought these people into a lab, and they would give them the injection, and then they would study what happened to them. And what they found was that basically 10 out of 10 people had a complete and total breakthrough spiritual experience. They said it was one of the most significant experiences they've ever had in their life, next to the birth of a child or the death of a parent. Yeah. It was that powerful for them. And so these were people from across the social spectrum, from across educational backgrounds. There were mathematics PhDs, there were regular working folks, there were blue-collar people, white-collar people. They just tested across a whole spectrum of people. And there's a book called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, about all of this. It's a great documentary, great book. What ayahuasca is basically the indigenous people in the Amazon figured out that if you combine two plants out of the millions of combinations of plants there are in the rainforest, two very specific plants combined together and boiled together would create a stable version of DMT that you could drink in a cup. And it would set in just like if you were to take a drink of alcohol, I guess.
Right, right.
And so that's what the ayahuasca ceremony is basically built around. It's imbibing this substance. So when I went to my ceremony, it was in Cusco, and we were in Cusco, which is already at a pretty high altitude. So there's low oxygen. You've already been fasting for 2 days. Plus you've been, not eating anything you're used to for 2 weeks. And you're already in kind of a weak state by the time you start there. So then we go to this, we start in Cusco, and then we go up and go to the actual location where the retreat is supposed to happen. And this is one night. So you stay the night. We go into the ceremony. The shaman is there, and he basically spends about, a few hours preparing the space. And wow. The purpose of that is because, at least in the way that it was explained to me, was that by doing this ceremony, you're opening a gateway. Mm-hmm. Which I think, we're starting to find out how real this is in the sense of the average everyday person. I think now, especially in the UFO space, we're starting to see this, but there's a lot of overlap here. So when you open that gateway, it goes both ways, and negative things can follow you back, and Right. So the shaman's role, this is why you don't do it in your basement, right? Or you don't do it at home. You need a controlled setting. You need someone who knows what they're doing to oversee this. You need to do it in a safe environment that's protected, and ideally with someone who really knows what they're doing. So they prepare the space, and then there were 3 of us. They go to each person. It's the shaman and his assistant. Shaman talks to each person, asks a question or two, and then decides how much ayahuasca you get. And so the first 2 people, and then he goes to me and pours me like a coffee mug. I mean, it's like this much. It's a lot.
What?
And I knew it was really strong. I just didn't know. I knew it was a scary amount. That's what I knew. I didn't know what I was in for. I just knew that it was a scary amount. And I drank it. And then I laid back on this mat. And the body's initial reaction to taking ayahuasca is to get very sick. You get violently sick. It's called the purge. And you purge basically bad energy, if that makes sense. Like all of the negativity and all of the bad vibes and all of the weirdness that you carry around that's inside everyone, that just you pick up from just life and all of that comes out. And so you've got a bucket.
Well, and ask you, does it come out both ends, or did you just throw up?
It can come out both ends, but that's why if you're smart, you fast for a couple of days before you do it. Right. You go in clean. Yeah. Trust me on that one. That's anybody listening at home, definitely do the 48-hour fast.
Yeah.
So I had a really strange experience. I drink this stuff, and when you taste it, it tastes god awful. It's the worst tasting. I cannot imagine anything tasting worse. This tasted like old motor oil and old coffee from a gas station, mixed together with dirt. Yeah. It's bad.
Oh my goodness.
So you drink it, and then you have like they give you a little sip of water to just kind of rinse it out of your mouth. And then you just lay back on a mat. So I'm laying on this mat, and I realize at this moment, there's no going back. Like I'm on this roller coaster now. And I think anybody who's ever done serious psychedelics at some point realizes, like, you just go, oh, I'm on this roller coaster. And it starts to feel like you feel that anxiety, like you're going up. When you're on a roller coaster, you start to go up that incline, you get all the way to the top, and you're like, click, 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 click. And then it just kind of sits there for a minute. That's where I stayed for about 20 minutes in that mental space. And I'm laying on this mat. There's no one in the tent. We're in this big sort of tent space. There's the shaman, his assistant, two other people who were there with me. So there's 3 of us total, and my wife, who's sitting off to the side. After about 20 minutes of laying there in the silence, you hear nothing. I mean, just the wind kind of outside. Everybody's laying. In my right ear, this is the weirdest thing that happened. Well, it gets weirder, but this is the first weird thing that happened. In my right ear, I'm lying on this mat, right up in my ear, like right next to my head. I hear a female voice giggle. It's the weirdest thing, like right next to my head. I open my eyes, I'm looking around, and there's no one around. Like, it's just a big empty space. And that was super weird. The spirit behind ayahuasca, the spirit of ayahuasca, is said to be a female spirit. They call her mother ayahuasca. And the idea is that the reason they call her Mother Ayahuasca is because when you go to see her, she's going to treat you like a mother treats a child. She's going to show you what you need to know, not what you want to see. She's going to give you, this, it's kind of like a tough love sort of a thing.
Sure.
So I hear this voice laugh in my ear, and I'm like, oh man, this is weird. About another 10 minutes goes by, and then I hear a voice inside my head. Now it's gone from outside my head to inside my head. And it's this female voice, and she just goes, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And then she just goes, "Let go." And I just sit there for a second. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean, let go? And she's like, you have to let go to do this. You got to let go. And I don't know what let go means. So for a minute or two, I was kind of struggling with this. And then I understand what she means. And she's basically meaning you have to kind of give yourself over to this experience. And just don't expect anything. Just relax. And as soon as I did that, it was the weirdest thing. So in the reason this experience was so significant for me is because for the very first time, I experienced communication with another intelligent being that was not myself. Mm-hmm. And I experienced telepathy. Like, I actually experienced thought-to-thought communication instantaneously. So as soon as I realize what I'm supposed to do and I relax, it was like getting shot out of a cannon at the speed of light into the middle of the universe. That's what it felt like. And you just traverse what feels like this infinite distance in the span of like a few seconds. And when we stopped, I found myself without a body. My consciousness was just floating in this big space. It was almost like the whole world around me. Every time I tell this story, it feels like like if you were sitting in the room that you're in right now, and everything around you it was like someone turned a knob and everything just turns to steam, and then it's just gone. And you realize, like, oh, I'm backstage. That's my first thought was, I'm backstage. I'm backstage for reality. The world has a behind the curtain, and that's where I am right now. That's just the first thought that came into my mind. And so I'm sitting in this space, and I have no body, and I have no sense of direction, but I know that it's infinitely huge. And everything is made out of colors. Everything is made out of like fractal. It looks like a who's that painter? The Alex Gray, the painter. And like, if you look at any Alex Gray painting, that's what the whole universe was made out of. It looked like that. And so from there, I start to look up. I get my bearings a little bit, and I start to look around, and I see these beings, and they are massive. They're like now relative to me, they feel like they're 150 feet tall, like 15 stories high, gigantic beings. And they're just sort of moving. They're made out of light. They're walking around. They're moving. I can tell other things are coming and going. You feel like you're in a busy space, or at least I did. I felt like there was things coming and going. And some of these beings noticed me, but they didn't really care. They just sort of looked at me, and that was that. Mother Ayahuasca starts to give me information in the form of what I call downloads, if you want to call it a download.
Yeah.
And you know what a download is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's like you get an email with an attachment, and you double click the attachment, and then you just get a full understanding of everything. So I would get like
in the movie The Matrix, when
exactly.
Neo downloaded.
Exactly. But it would be like, I got to feel what every argument I ever was in felt like to be the other person in that argument. I got to feel that. I got that emotion. I got to see what a jerk I was in that one time back 12 years ago when I said such and such to whoever. Or I got to feel the experience of being another person and having to deal with me. And it suddenly gave me the background, the information that I was missing to understand why I had the questions that I had. And it was like this.
I got to interrupt you, because that point, very poignant that you made. Everyone that I interviewed that had an NDE, and I think this is a good correlation, has had that moment where they feel everything that they've done wrong to everybody else in a matter of seconds. So like any conversation where you were a jerk, anytime you mistreated somebody, that you were able to feel instantly. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You experience, wow, that's trippy.
Yeah. It's weird. And it was pulling up all of this stuff from my past that I didn't know about, and I didn't understand the context, and suddenly it gave me context, and it was able to basically like let me answer my own questions by showing me the full picture, is the best way I could explain it. And then as soon as I would like grok it, I would be on to the next thing. It was like she was taking me and then shooting me at light speed, and it was like being in a giant library the size of the galaxy and going from one aisle of the library to the next aisle, and she's taking me and she's showing me like, look at this book, read this, and giving me little bits and pieces. And so I would go to the next place, and I got answers about other things. And then she would take me someplace else, and I got answers about other things. This went on for what felt like days. I mean, it just felt like it never ended. There's no time. So it just felt like it kept going. And then this is the craziest part. At one point, just towards the end, now it's important backstory. At this time in our life, this was a number of years ago, my wife and I were told by numerous doctors that we weren't going to be able to have kids. And that wasn't in our plan. Just let that one go. And so this was something that medically we had been told is just not a possibility for us. And so in that time in my life, I wasn't even thinking about kids. It wasn't even on my radar. It just wasn't there. And in this vision, I was shown a child. I was shown this little kid, this little soul. It was like a little glowing soul that just, and the best way I can describe it, and every time I say this, it's the same way. It was like they if you remember the Kool-Aid commercials where the Kool-Aid man like kicks through a wall and shows up in everybody's living room and, jumps out. That it was like that. It was like this little soul just sort of popped out and was just like, ta-da. And I had this whole experience with this little being. And then I came out of the ceremony. And eventually, I returned back to my body and I was back in real time and space. And I didn't know I didn't know what that meant. I was like, why am I seeing this? And it wasn't until years later where we found out we were going to have my son. We're going to have a kid. And which was a total shock to us, a complete surprise. We told completely unexpected. And not only that, but when my son was born and I got to, you have a kid, you get to meet them and you get to, over time, you find out who they are and you learn about, they become their own person. That's the child I saw in my vision. It's my son. So for me, this ayahuasca experience exposed me to another realm, another dimension of reality that I thought might be real, but I never knew it was real until this. And then I knew it was real. And when it finally did happen, that my son was born and I got to meet him and get to know him and see this whole little person develop, and I knew that I made that connection, it was right around the same time that all of the UFO revelations were happening and everything was starting to really heat up and come out. And I realized at that point, I'm like, this is where I want to spend my focus. This is what I want to spend my energy on. This is where I want to explore this, whatever this is, this weirdness here. Because the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday world just wasn't cutting it for me. It wasn't okay with me that's it. Like that's all there is. It's just Starbucks and going to the store and working at a job and like, that's life. And then you die. I just couldn't accept that. So I needed to find something else. And this for me, not only was that other thing, but it was real. And it just opened the floodgates for me. And over the years since then, it's changed my whole personality. It's changed my whole life. It's made it's been probably the single most impactful event, that one ceremony, out of all the experiences I've ever had, next to the birth of my kid.
Of course. How long did it last, the whole experience?
About 4.5, 5 hours. Ooh. From the time you drink it to the time it's out of your system, probably about 6, 7 hours.
Did you have anything negative happen to you when you were over there? Or was it all just mostly positive stuff or informational? It
wasn't negative, but it was it was intense. It was like getting 30 years of therapy in about 4.5 hours. If I can explain. I came out of it and my brain was just like wrung out like an old sponge. And I was just like, whoa. And I needed a couple of days to sort of come back down to earth and understand it all and take it in. And I tried to journal it, but I couldn't, when you're there, the things that you're seeing and experiencing are beyond words. It doesn't translate.
Was it videotaped for you?
No.
No, they didn't videotape it?
No, and it's probably for the best. I mean, it's just people barfing in a tent. Inside your head, you feel like you're having this amazing experience. And you are. It's real. But from the outside, it doesn't look
too good.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, that's it. Would you do it again?
Yes, but only just now have I gotten to that point where I would do it again. It's hardcore. Yeah. But I would do it again. Yeah.
Do you think LSD and like mescaline are similar, like in experience? Do you think you could kind of achieve the same thing? I mean, I know those are illegal drugs, but people do take them. So, I mean, I've heard of them. I've never experienced any of that myself. Drugs always frighten me. So I just never did them because I'm a scaredy cat. But I wonder if there's a crossover because Joe Rogan talks about it. I mean, he talks about DMT all the time and his experience with that. So they do it multiple times too.
You can do it multiple times in a row. You can do it, every day for 3 or 4 days. They give it to babies in certain indigenous groups. Will give it to their children. They'll put it on the tip of their finger and let a baby, taste it. It's, this is what I would say. In our culture, particularly in the United States, we have it very backwards. And I think we've been very backwards for a while in with regard to our understanding of the spiritual side of reality. Indigenous cultures aren't separate from that spiritual knowledge. They never gave up that. That's what makes them so special. They have that built, that wisdom it's wired into their society, their culture. And that's what we're missing. If you look around and you look at our world, why it's so messed up is because we have no spiritual sense of anything. Like we're just, we treat it like stuff. It's all stuff. So we just,
it's all ego. It's all ego.
And indigenous people don't think that way. And so you have to go there. And I say it like this, you have to go hat in hand and you have to say like, I need help. I don't have this knowledge. I want it, but I need help. I don't know where to start. That's the best place to start, is just go humbly and ask, find out what you can, do your research. So in terms of like which drugs will get you there, I would say this. I would always defer to an indigenous shaman or a medicine person or someone who has extensive experience and training with working with these substances, because it's a super powerful thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not something you do in your living room. Although people will smoke DMT in their living room and they'll say, oh, I've had these crazy experiences. And I'm sure they have. I just, for me personally, treat it with a little more reverence, because I realized like, oh my God, this is way bigger than me. And I need to be very respectful of it.
That was great. That was a great analysis, Clint. Thank you. I'm sure that answered a lot of questions that people would have about it. And clearly it's made a profound change in your life, one for the better, I think, just based on our past conversations. And I mean, it guided you to where you are today. It guided you to the birth of your son, and seems like a good experience.
I think it did even more. I think it switched something on. I think when, we've seen a lot of interest recently in telepathy from the Telepathy Tapes podcast, and which we talked about, and there's the recent Jake Barber interview on News Nation, the UFO whistleblower, who said that they have teams of psionic, what the psionics team, he calls it, that call in these craft that can actually telepathically communicate with these craft. I am starting to suspect that that for one, most people in our culture are asleep to the fact that these talents even exist, and that we probably all have them to some degree. And I also am starting to suspect that at some level, with the right intention and the right plan of action, psychedelics can help flip that switch inside your mind and open that door.
Absolutely. And that was such a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about today. But for folks that don't know, as Clint just mentioned, psionics is like the study of psychic powers like telepathy, psychokinesis, ESP, things like that. And there's a good video. I'll put it in the link. It's called The Summoners with George Knapp. And these folks get together and they summon UFO craft, and they tell you how to do it. Now, I know that Greer Stephen is charging, he's got a group of people where they go out to summon, and he charges for that. But these folks actually, I have to finish watching it because I've tried to do it myself. I definitely want to continue to do it. And they give you all the how-tos in the video, so it's pretty interesting. Have you ever tried to do that? Summon a craft?
I've tried it, but I've tried it like when I'm walking my dog, like it's not, I don't go out and like sit down and like really try to do it. I would like to, but I just haven't had that kind of time with a toddler running around. But if I'm outside and it's nighttime and I've got a clear view of the sky, I'll watch. I always am watching the sky. And if I see something that looks out of place, I'll try to like send it a little, hi, how do you do? And see if I get a blink or a response or anything back.
Especially when I'm walking my dog and it's not too freezing, like 7 below, but But on a good night, I will stay out there for a while and try to send some thoughts. You did an excellent job at breaking down Jake Barber, the interview they did. What was it, News Nation, right?
Yeah, just last Saturday.
Yeah, you did a phenomenal job with that. And I'll put the link for folks to go head on over and give it a listen. Let's dip our toes into that topic a little bit. So I'm going to let you explain what happened with Jake so folks can know. And if you want to share anything, any of that video, just let me know. You could go right ahead. But to me, I found it very profound, and I had to watch it 2 times because it really struck a chord. And I've watched other whistleblowers, of course, and I never got that feeling. Like, this man, for some reason, has been absolutely transformed by this experience, and he talks about how, and not always in a positive way, although he did have a very positive experience. But he was also deathly ill from what they think was radiation poisoning. But I'm going to let you explain, and then we're going to deep dive a little bit into that whole thing, because to me, that was, I guess, the defining moment for me that completely convinced me that we're not alone. Like, I always believed it, but maybe like 90%. Now I'm like 100% on board.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? How, like, I think that's where most people are, more or less. I think most people, and Jake Barber even alluded to this, and I'll touch on that in a second, but I think most people deep down know something is not right, or know that there's more than this, like whatever this is, right? It can't all just be strip malls and traffic jams and, Netflix. Like, that, there's more, there's got to be more than that. In other words, like, where's the magic? Where's the spark?
Exactly.
And I think that most people, if you got 100 people in a room and you asked 100 people, have you ever had a strange experience that you can't explain? I think probably 90 people out of the 100 would say yeah. And then they would tell you a story that is either a UFO story or a ghost story or something very. But to them, in that moment, the thing that they experienced for them is as real as it gets. And I think that's where we all are. And so Jake Barber is a Air Force, I think,
badass.
Badass. What did I think Lou Elizondo said? They're basically like the Navy SEALs of the Air Force.
Right.
That's what these guys do. I think he's a combat controller, if I remember right, what that's called. But he's a helicopter pilot, and he was on Ross Coulthard's show on News Nation last Saturday, and he basically came forward as a whistleblower to say that he was part of a special operations team that was sent out to recover downed aircraft, and that's their normal job. But this team also gets sent out when a UAP goes down or a UFO goes down. It's the same team, same skill set. So these guys go out, and there's a craft that has either it's been brought down, and his job was to basically fly the helicopter in and hook up a 150-foot line to this thing, and then lift it by helicopter and move it to another place. When he gets to the location, he's flying over the site with night vision goggles on. And he looks at the object, and what he sees is an egg. It looks exactly like a giant egg. And he hooks this, they hook it up, and he basically takes it back to where it's supposed to go. But he knows that this is not a human craft. This is an NHI craft. And in the interview, when Ross asks him, the next question is, how did it come to be where it was? How did this craft come to be there? Jake Barber says, it was invited to land there by our psionics team, meaning that they have a team of psychics within the special forces community that is their job to communicate with these craft. Not only is it their job, but first of all, these craft can be communicated with telepathically, apparently. And they have a team of people specially trained to do this.
And the Pentagon has this. The Pentagon has this team of people that they started with remote viewing decades ago, right? And it kind of evolved into,
Project Stargate, which was Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ at Stanford Research Institute, and Ingo Swann, who is like the Michael Jordan of remote viewing.
Right.
In fact, I have his book right here, Everybody's Guide to ESP, Natural ESP.
Who was the gentleman that was, I'm going to be careful with my verbiage, who was kicked off the planet? He was one of the first remote viewers, and he was, 86th. Do you remember who that was? There was a very famous remote viewer. I can't think of his name.
Oh.
But he started. He worked for the Pentagon, and they eventually did away with him.
It doesn't jog my memory, but if it jumps in there, I'll let you know. But I know that, yes, the remote viewing is real. It's been funded to the tune of tens of millions of dollars by the Department of Defense and our various intelligence agencies within our greater intelligence apparatus. It's been studied since the 1970s. It's been proven to be real. Not only has it been proven to be real, they have real training protocols in place to train what are known as military grade remote viewers. These are guys who have actually gone through, and Ingo is one of the people who designed the training protocols, if I remember correctly, the original training protocols. And this was an attempt to catch up to the Soviets, who at the time were studying psionics heavily. And there's been a long-standing rumor in the UFO community that psionics and psychic abilities and telepathy have something to do with UFOs, but it's never really been connected until very, very recently. And when Jake Barber, one of the things that was so significant about his interview on News Nation was that in that interview, for one, he not only did he confirm that he had worked with an extraterrestrial craft, he confirmed that we have teams of psychics, psionics teams, he calls them, that communicate with the craft. And then in the same interview, he explains that he was tasked with picking up a number of different things. Sometimes it would be, the one was an egg. Another one was something he called the 8-gon, which is a disc divided into 8 sections. So if you were to look at it from the top down, it would be a round disc like a UFO, but 8 sections to the disc.
Mm-hmm.
He picks this thing up and he's overcome. He said he felt like something tuned into his soul. He said it plugged into me. It connected to me. And then he cries in the actual, you've seen the interview. He cries. He gets choked up and he's like, this was the most beautiful experience I've ever had in my life. Something clicked into my brain and I felt like this presence. It was spiritual. He describes it as being a spiritual presence, angelic, overwhelming. He didn't know if he should abort the mission or if he could continue flying his helicopter or if he had. So he just had to like drill down into his training and go by the checklist and get through it. But he says to this day, he still has flashes of this telepathic communication that have happened. But he said it was his hypothesis that they were beings either on board the craft or beings piloting the craft remotely, but they were the ones connecting to him. Something communicated with him, in other words. So it's a very interesting interview.
It was. And what was noteworthy about that is he said that it felt female and it felt like a godlike presence. And then you brought up an excellent point, and it really made me wonder. And I spoke with Preston Dennett yesterday, and so folks, make sure you watch that. It's going to air Friday. We talked about whether or not these ETs are capable of spiritual attacks, because you mentioned, was it a transcendental spiritual event, or was it like an attack? Was it an illusion to make you feel and think you're being comforted while they're guiding you towards it? So talk about that a little bit.
Well, so we've heard rumors of this psychic connection for many, many years. There have been various people throughout the years who have come forward suggesting or saying that they had worked on these crash retrieval teams and in one capacity or another had experienced telepathic contact with the beings on board the craft. There was a case of a guy named Lance Corporal John Wagant. He was a United States Marine, deployed in Peru in the mid-90s, sent out to secure a crash site, his unit arrives at like 4:00 in the morning at this site. Everything's on fire. There's a crashed vehicle buried in the side of a mountain. It looks like a giant egg, he explains. And he gets close enough to it that some of the chemicals that are coming out of the ship, he says they're like translucent purple green oil almost. It gets on his skin. He hears this voice in his head, and it's these beings. He describes it like tuning into an AM radio station. You know how it's like AM radio is just, you gotta sometimes like work the dial. Well, he was like, he said it's like that. And then I could hear them communicating with me, and they were telling me, please help us. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just help us, help us, help us. And so that was his story. There are a number of stories like this, but Jake Barber, who is like a 6'2", like 240-pound special forces guy who just burst into tears when he started talking about his psychic contact on camera. That was the thing for me that was just like, oh, wow. They're coming on the back of the Telepathy Tapes podcast, which totally rocked my world. That one was something else. And I think it's opened an entirely new chapter in this conversation about what we're actually dealing with and what they're really trying to hide from us.
I agree.
Oh, and to your question about the psychic attack, my hypothesis, or my question, I guess, and one of the questions we try to deal with on the show is, are these beings positive or negative? Are they here to help us? Are they here to harm us? Or is it something in between? Or are we dealing with multiple different types of beings that have different agendas and different goals? And how do we know who's who and what's what?
Right.
And I was asking the question on our show about these people report these psychic connections. It's not, even though the language they use may be flowery and beautiful and it sounds like this spectacular spiritual moment, could that event actually be some kind of a psychic attack akin to a telepathic rhinoceros tranquilizer dart? You know, like if I really want to get you, to do what I want, I can just flood your mind with joy, and you'll just be like,
so it's
like euphoric on heroin, and then you're just like, whatever, you become like pliable. And I was just asking that question. I don't have it. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, we don't know what we're dealing with, so we have to be ready for anything. And one of the things we have to be ready for is like things that we've never thought of before.
Yeah.
And it's, could a telepathic being do something like that to us, or to a group of people all at once, or to a large group of people? We don't know, but it's a good question.
No, we don't. And it's funny because the more I talk to contactees, they all say that that's absolutely not true, that these are loving entities and they would never be capable of doing something like that. And even verified yesterday with Preston and Dolly, who is a generational contactee, and she still experiences these contacts with ETs. And I happen to just believe her. But I heard something very interesting today. I think it was on X. James Fox, he was in an interview with Paul Wallace, and they mentioned something that really made me pause and think. He said that by privatizing the reverse engineering process of these UAPs to certain groups, I guess, in the aerospace industry, and they can do this because they have these massive black budgets, right, Clint? And by doing that, they have chosen to like mess up the disclosure process, slow it down by doing that. So do you think that that's true, that because we've privatized a lot of what's happening in our airspace through all these different agencies, do you think that's muddling the waters of full disclosure? Do you think there's a connection?
I think there's a connection, but I think at one level it's a very practical money thing. I think it's a money thing to some extent. It's like you have the goose that lays the golden egg. The United States military, funded by the American taxpayer, goes out and recovers a crashed UFO at Roswell, New Mexico. They bring this thing back. And then if you have read The Day After Roswell by Colonel Philip Corso Jr., Phil Corso was the officer in charge of basically taking this technology and making sure that it got to companies that had the expertise and the institutional knowledge inexperience to look at the material and figure out what it was that they were dealing with. At that time, during the end of World War II, coming out of World War II, going into the Cold War, this makes perfect sense to me, especially, in the wake of World War II. We don't know what we're dealing with. I can see this happening, and it makes perfect sense. Our military gets a hold of some of the hardware. We need to figure out what it is. Let's get our best people on it. So we go to private industry and we say, what can you guys do with this? What happens next, though, is that over the next 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, this technology, this program becomes refined and it becomes official and it gets built out. And then they start recovering more technology. And these partners, these aerospace companies, as you mentioned, are getting their hands on this stuff. And they basically have the goose that lays the golden egg. They've got the next 1,000 years of technology sitting in front of them, and they can tease this out a little bit at a time forever. And I think one thing that we're looking at right now is a break in the group that was behind this whole program initially. I think we're seeing a faction break free of that group. And my suspicion is, at the bottom of it, what they're trying to do is get their hands on some of this technology and bring it out of these black budget programs into where the commercialized space where people can actually, entrepreneurs and startups and other companies can take advantage of this technology.
Yeah.
And it would be worth trillions of dollars. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
Gosh, that makes so much sense. I want to show folks a little bit. Let me present this video here with what we're talking about. It's, they now Jake didn't give them this video, right? Didn't News Nation get this themselves? Wasn't it gotten independently from?
I'm not sure what the chain of custody of the video is. I understand that it didn't come from Jake Barber directly, but it is a video that is of the same thing Jake Barber's talking about. It's just not, it didn't come from him.
From him, right. All right, well, let's just play it real quick.
Let's slow this down to take a closer look. That's an egg-shaped UAP suspended from a 150-foot long line. We're told the craft is about 20 feet long. The egg suspended in a cradle. And look how careful the pilot is as they bring their precious cargo into land. Let's freeze frame here to look at one of the clearest images of a UAP ever taken. This is no blurry light in a distant sky. The source of the footage putting themselves at incredible risk to record this UAP retrieval. Look at how perfectly smooth the craft is. No markings at all, and no visible means of propulsion or way to see inside. Watch how it rolls, almost graceful as it hits the ground, despite being wrapped in the ropes and canvas from the cradle as it's dropped for pickup. The UAP's final destination still unknown.
So there was.
That's some crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's some interesting questions about that because on the one hand, they're saying it's a UAP, and I'm taking Ross at his word that they've vetted this information. They know that's true, but there's a chance that it couldn't. It could be anything. We really don't know. At least it hasn't been corroborated publicly anywhere else that I've seen. So we're going off of this as like that's really what it is. A lot of people on the internet were not thrilled with this video because when it landed on Saturday, they expected something I think a little bit more dramatic. And I noticed that a lot of the comments online were sort of like, this just looks like an egg on a string.
Right.
The best take I've heard so far on this video is that this was designed to do two things. One, it was a warning shot to the legacy program to let them know that they are sitting on, this faction that's trying to break free is sitting on video footage.
Right.
And this isn't their best stuff. This is just the first stuff. Now imagine what's coming next, what's going to come after this, and then maybe they're going to ratchet this up. That's one hypothesis that's out there. And I like that one. I think that's interesting. And then the other thing that this video was a signal flare. It was a bat signal to send up to other whistleblowers or potential whistleblowers who are currently or prior military, who have stories they want to share. They want to come forward. They don't know how to start, where to start, who to talk to. This is showing those guys, hey, we have a space for you. We can protect you. You can come to us with your information and we will help you get it out so that you can be free of this burden of what you're carrying around. And I think that's really what this was about. At the end of the day, I think this was about sending a signal to other people out there who may be sitting on more interesting information that they want to bring forward, that it's time to do it. And now's the time.
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, didn't he start that Skywatcher group of military folks and that's when he said, like, fasten your seatbelts. There's a lot more to come, right?
Yeah, he's got a group of guys that, as I understand it, they go and do retrievals for private corporations. So they basically will go out and find things and bring them back. And,
You know what was tricky? When they had that psionics guy out, he was showing a video of that and how two craft appeared and then they looked like they began to engage in like some kind of battle. And the guy that was doing the telepathy was like, get me out of here, get me out of here. There's something not right.
Was that a Jake? I know that there's an old story about Ingo Swann it's 40 years old, but I know that he said something similar in a different experience, but I don't know about Jake's team.
This was a recent thing. I could have swore it came from him. I'll have to find it, but I was watching so much stuff yesterday, so it kind of
there's a lot to keep up with.
There really is. It kind of all gelled together, so my brain's a little fried, but I know it was recent. I could have swore it was from the Skywatchers. I'll find it. It
might be. I just, I'm behind too. I gotta.
Oh, there's so much.
You could watch stuff all day, every day, and you'd never catch up. There's too much going on in this space right now.
Absolutely, but like I said before, that kind of nailed it for me in terms of like my emotional connection to this whole topic. I always wanted to believe, because I felt it at my core, that we're not alone. Like, when you just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Now this solidified things for me that, like, I'm 100% convinced that we're in for a ride.
So there's a great clip, and I don't know if you know where it is in the video, but there's a clip of him talking about just that point. And he says, Ross asked him a question about, I guess, are people ready for this? Or will they experience ontological shock?
Yeah, I remember that.
And, Jake Barber said that I think it'll be an ontological relief. I think people will be relieved because they'll finally be able to go, okay, now we can relax. Like, we know there's been this buildup for so long, like that we all kind of know. Absolutely. And it's the elephant in the room. It's like, we all kind of know. There's just, this one's real. This one's real. Of all the different conspiracy things that you've ever heard in your life and all the different ones, this one's real.
Yeah.
And we just want to see it. I think that's just where we're at right now.
Absolutely. And it's very annoying because at the end of this documentary, which Stephen Greer calls tabloid, he used the word tabloid interview.
Yeah.
Was kind of weird, but at the end you see this disclosure from Arrow, and that it's the whole thing makes me crazy. Like, I remember seeing documentaries about folks that have witnessed very religious, biblical things happening. I know someone personally that has had a visitation from Our Lady Mary, and everybody wants to debunk immediately. Oh, that statue, the eyes aren't bleeding. It's a mass hallucination. Like, everybody is always so fast, including the government, just to debunk everything and make us think we're freaking crazy. Oh, it's all in your imagination. Those aren't drones. Yeah. They're airplanes. They're gifts that parents gave out on Christmas. I think we're going to have to live with a lot of that yet.
I agree. I think you're right. I think though that we're also looking at a lot of different things, and we're not sure where the UFO part stops and where something else starts, and where there are regular drones in the sky. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
But we don't, because we don't know what we're looking at a lot of the time. It's very difficult as civilians to understand what the bigger picture is. My issue with Stephen Greer is that I didn't like the way he used the word tabloid in that particular on his. Now, Stephen Greer has his own podcast now. It's on Stephen Greer's YouTube channel. I encourage everyone to go check it out. I think he's on episode 3 now. He's doing one a week. Yep. I don't dislike Stephen Greer. I sometimes catch heat from people because I'm critical of Stephen Greer because he, for over 30 years, has made himself the center of ufology, or attempted to. And he claims in his podcast that he's really the only person who has a complete picture of everything that's going on. And I just have a hard time with that one. I don't like it when someone is like, I am the only person who has the answers. This guy doesn't really know what he's talking about, only me. And for my part, I don't see how anyone can say that. I just don't understand how that could be true. So I take a little bit of an issue with that. But otherwise, it seems interesting that Stephen Greer and Lou Elizondo, they have beef publicly. They don't get along. But they are in alignment on one thing, that Jake Barber is for real, and what's coming next is going to be even bigger, and this is going to continue until we get to a point where it's undeniable and this whole conversation changes into something else.
Yeah. Well, our government and governments have engaged in a 70-year plus lie to us. So I don't know. I'm not too hopeful when it comes to such disclosure. I think that you're right. We're going to get disclosure through these types of folks that come out and show us more video and give us more information. And I just think the government will constantly and repeatedly deny it and lie until it gets to an explosion point where they just can't anymore. And I don't know when that'll be. Like when
I think that the make or break, it's like the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. It's like the ETs have something to say about this schedule. Like we are reacting to them. Everything we do is in reaction to what they're doing. They have they're an order of magnitude beyond or more where we're at in terms of total understanding. They have apparently complete knowledge of everything that's going on around the world at any given moment. And so what they choose to do is also a factor, and they may choose to reveal themselves.
That's such a good point.
We're coming to a point in human history, and you and I spoke earlier this morning via email about that. You sent a couple of articles, and I was going through them about the stuff that's going on at Google. OpenAI just announced that they're meeting with President Trump because this is Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, meeting with President Trump to let them know that within a few days, they're going to release an update to ChatGPT that is going to be PhD level smart in everything.
Yeah.
You will, in other words, you'll be able to use an AI and you could start a company with one person and you could staff it with artificial intelligence that has PhD level knowledge in every domain. And you could go, and that's going to be a thing that going forward from here, maybe, and this is a hypothesis that I'm partial to, maybe the ETs or the NHI are concerned that not about us, but when we create a super intelligence, the artificial super intelligence, they are going to have to contend with that. And that might be a whole different ballgame for them than what dealing with us is about.
True.
And so I think there may be a ticking time clock attached to everything you're seeing right now, which is why it's happening now. I suspect that behind all of this, there is something else pushing this agenda forward. And I think at a certain point, we just run out of time. And when we do run out of time, we're going to see what this is all about. One way or the other, whether or not the government is on board, it's just going to happen.
True,
and don't forget, there was, I just heard, I don't know if this is a true, I haven't verified this yet, but I'll say it because it's interesting. But I don't know that this is true, so please let me check on this. Someone told me just today that I guess Lou Elizondo is going to the Vatican to meet with I don't know if he's meeting with the Pope or if he's meeting with some high officials at the Vatican, but supposedly the Vatican is getting into position to maybe make a statement. And that could be outside of what the American government wants to do. You know, there are other players in this game who can disclose. It doesn't have to just be the American defense establishment. It can be somebody else.
True. Unfortunately, my opinions about the Vatican have gravely changed since the implementation of this new pope, but that's a whole nother story. I wanted to ask you too about another thing that intrigued me during this, during Jake Barber's testimony, whistleblowing event. Mm-hmm. He talked about these Panasonic Tough Books, these missing hard drives that were supposedly loaded with, I guess, UAP data. Is that right, Clint?
Yeah, data that had been gathered from UAPs, from some sensor systems that, yeah.
So shots were fired, he said, and he felt it was a setup. And he said that they felt like they were the hidden hand that's to get severed, and that the trail he followed led him right to the top. I mean, what was that all about, these Panasonic hard drives? Like, what in the world?
My understanding of this is not much. You know, I saw the same interview you saw. What I took away from this was that his group, his private company, was given an assignment by their client to go retrieve some Panasonic Tough Books that were in a particular remote location. Mm-hmm. His team goes on this detective hunt, and for weeks and weeks and weeks, they're tracking these things down, and they eventually find them. They get to where the Tough Books are. They go to retrieve them, and they find out that inside the Tough Books, the hard drives had all been removed. So they've got these laptops now, but there's no hard drives inside. So then they go on another goose chase to find the hard drives. And where they eventually locate them is in a lake. I believe it was in a lake, 25 feet underwater in a sealed container. Now, to give you an idea of how badass his team is, think about that. Like, which lake, where, 25 feet under, how did you find them? But they found him. And then I guess he, according to him, shots were fired at his team, and he felt like he was being set up to be, I guess, either assassinated or taken out in one way or another, or something happened. Or it's possible, I guess, that maybe another group was going to retrieve the same hard drives, and they saw each other at the same time, maybe, and maybe there was an interaction there.
Didn't he say spoke to the guy at the top, like the contractor that hired them, and this guy was afraid to talk? He was kind of telling him just leave things alone, like that he knew more than, I don't know. The whole thing is so diabolical.
I think you're going to see. They all say that. I can't talk, right? And it's tough. It's very difficult. I as a person watching this from the outside, I look at a guy like Jake Barber and I say, this is a man who has served his country honorably. He has spent years of his life that he's never going to get back, suffering from injuries that he's received while he was in the line of duty. All of this stuff that's gone into this, his exemplary military career, his resume is impeccable. His accolades are, there's a list of accolades as long as my arm. Yeah. And it's not just him. It's all of these guys. These are the best of the best of the best. But the thing about the best of the best of the best is that they're also very intelligent people. They're recruited. Yeah. They're chosen for their intelligence. They're selected. Look at all the Green Berets who are also like PhDs and all these guys. Very intelligent, very smart people. And the trouble with smart people is they think about things an awful damn lot. And at night, sometimes when they're up late, they're thinking about stuff. And sometimes they have a moral compass. A lot of times they do. And I think a lot of these guys are like, you know what? Enough's enough. Yeah. Enough's enough with this bullshit. I'm tired of being, in fear of my life all the time, threatened about, I can't talk about any of this. The world is bigger than we've been told. We have been fed a lie. Everything we think we know is wrong, and people need to know. I think deep down, a lot of these guys are just from a sense of internally, a sense of humanity, of just common humanity. They're looking around at the world just like you are, just like I am, and they're going, "What is going on? We're losing the plot here." We've just run off the rails. And I think they see that it's time to bring this information out and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, it's time to be the hero. I mean,
it's hero time.
It is. It really is hero time.
It's punk rock time. You got to just go for it. I think that's where we're at with UFOs. It's punk rock time. We got to just do this.
I love what we're doing because, like, I could watch these interviews that I sometimes, unfortunately, get wrapped up in, where you binge watching everything on YouTube. And I just love this because, to me, this is a form of disclosure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This helps the narrative. It helps drive the narrative. And, the more voices that the government hears, I think eventually they're going to be forced to disclose exactly. Why shouldn't we've been lied to for so long? And I feel that's such a betrayal. I mean, and I don't, there's so much going on that I don't like with all these pardons too and things, with Fauci and stuff. There's so much that it's an ugly feeling to sit with. So, when you get into this topic, it's so refreshing to know that, like you said before, there's so much more to life. There's so much more to us than just getting up every day, going to work, getting a Starbucks, living that life. And you see these types of videos all over TikTok and YouTube where people know this now. They're just done with the BS. They're done with it. They know that we're souls living in a physical world and not the other way around.
There's a comedian that I saw recently, and he said it like this. He goes, you ever think about, like, everything in the world, we made it up. So why does it suck? we made it. Can't we make up a better world? We could make. And I think you couldn't be more right. People are fed up, and deep down, they're just like, this can't be it. And I think what disclosure is going to eventually turn into, it's like this. I described it to someone the other day like this. The Soviet Union, for decades and decades, it was impossible to imagine that it would ever go away, that it would ever not be there.
Right.
There's no way you just couldn't imagine it. It was too big. It's like America. It's like imagining that America would just go away.
Yeah.
And one day, people just stopped believing in it. And they stopped shooting each other at the Berlin Wall. And the people who were the secret police stopped arresting people. And you know what I mean? Like, the Soviet Union eventually dissolved because people stopped believing it.
Yep.
And mentally, when they just stopped, en masse, all of them just stopped believing in this idea, even a little bit. There was a critical mass threshold, but once it hit, if you remember those videos of when the Berlin Wall came down, it was like, these people, they had no idea that this was ever going to happen. They just couldn't imagine it. And then suddenly they find themselves in this entirely new world, completely changed by this gigantic event. The only event that could be that big or bigger would be UFO confirmation.
Absolutely.
I think that's what we're looking at. I think that's what's going to happen.
It's funny. I have a piece of the Berlin Wall, and every now and then I pull it out and I just hold it and go, wow, this is a piece of history. It's like, that's such a great point that you brought up. So I have a bunch of other stuff. We have some time, and I just want to take a quick break to let folks know what they're listening to. And of course, thank everybody for joining us today at Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. We're broadcasting on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And I want to thank everybody, because every week our audience is growing and growing, and there's no words to express what your support means. And if you could head on over and give us a thumbs up and a like and share, that would mean the world to me and everyone at the network. So please, thank you so very much for that. Okay, so there's a few things I wanted to hit you up on. We had this weird fog mystery happen shortly after the drone stuff. Like, when does it end? This year just began, and it's full of cray-cray. It's full of craziness. So all over social media was, there's this mystery fog, and and that news came and went. Now nobody's talking about this fog. But some people analyzed it and they discovered all these weird chemicals and things with a nefarious nature. Like what were you thinking when this all hit the news? Did you experience the fog where you live? And give us a rundown, because we had it here in Pennsylvania.
I heard about the fog. I didn't experience any strange fog where we are. We didn't have anything like that. I would say, it could be anything. That's the thing. It could be anything. But what we do know is that the government in the past has done all kinds of crazy tests on civilians without telling people what they're doing. They've irradiated civilians. They've given people syphilis. Our own military. They tested out LSD. They would just give these guys LSD and watch what happened. The CIA did the MK Ultra experiments, which only came out because it was leaked. It would have never come out that they did that.
Yeah,
they didn't want to tell anybody.
Stranger Things is based on the series Stranger Things. Yeah, it's based on reality. So go ahead.
So could they be testing some bizarre thing on people? Maybe, probably.
Yeah.
But how can you prove that? That's the other thing. So I wouldn't put it past them, whoever they are. And that's the other thing too. It could be some corporate thing. It doesn't always have to be the government. It could be something else we just don't understand. I don't know. And that's one of those mysteries that surrounds all of this. That is just they keep coming, and it's hard to.
People want to blame HAARP, for such things, but. It concerns me because of what they're doing to our skies, and these pilots that are dropping these chemicals on us. I saw some footage on them, and they hire like these heartless pilots that know what they're doing, with cloud seeding and everything that's going on. And it seems to be based in reality that there are some pilots that just don't care. They just drop this stuff, get paid, and move on. So it doesn't shock me that there was something in this fog. Who knows?
And it could be something as simple as like they tell these pilots, if pilots, they don't make a lot of money. Not most pilots don't make a lot of money.
Right.
They my uncle's an airline pilot. He's a captain for United, so he's been flying with them. Well, I think he's an instructor now, but he always told me, he's like, it's not about the money. It's because we love to fly. But they hire these guys, and if you're a young pilot and you've just got to do the job, and they're like, look, we're doing a weather experiment.
Yeah.
We're doing some cloud seeding. We just need you to fly this thing. What's in the tanks? I don't worry about it. It's just it's a harmless chemical. It's for testing, whatever. And then you go do your job and you get paid and you go pay your bills. And I think that might be what's going on. They're not going to tell anybody any more than they need to know. But I'm with you. There's sometimes I walk outside and I look up and I know the difference between a contrail and a plume of chemicals coming out of the back of an airplane. They're not the same thing. And when you see some of these planes, you're like, what are they spraying in the sky? And why is suddenly you go from a clear sky to a gray afternoon in like 25 minutes?
Yeah.
And it's like you watch this crisscross above. It's just a very weird thing. And I don't think we found the
deny that. Like, how can you deny what your eyes are showing you, that something nefarious is happening in our skies? I don't think our skies are safe for us. Everybody's worried about the food. Oh, red dye 3, red dye 40, remove this. What about what you're doing to the air that we're breathing and the water that we're drinking?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, don't even start with water. The water thing, just that alone, you have, there was I don't know if you remember, just before the fog thing happened in New Jersey, they were talking about their water smelled like turpentine.
I read that.
This was like 40 different towns all over New Jersey. They were like, our water smells like turpentine or nail polish. And no one wanted to drink it. They didn't want to shower with it. They couldn't explain where that came from. What was going on with the water? We know for sure. We know it's published. It's a matter of public record and published, established fact that after 9/11, they would put chemicals in the New York City subway system to test
Yes,
see how
I
fast
remember
things
that.
would spread. Remember that? You know, we don't know what those chemicals are. We don't, you know, they didn't tell anybody.
No.
You just don't know. Yeah. And that's it. We're taking our, you know, you have to take your risks and just live your life and hope for the best. I think that deep down though, a lot of people are like hoping that maybe UFOs will just show up and snap everybody out of this sort of daze that we're in. And we'll be able to say, oh, okay, we have a new thing. And we can all see the same problem at the same time. We can all, as a culture, lock into one thing. We're very fragmented. I think this is another thing that's going on. Like you've got,
Great point.
you know, we're all in our own little news bubble and we're all trying to like make sense of it, but we're only seeing what we're being shown. And I think what we're missing from like the difference now from like 25 years ago is that 25 years ago, everybody watched the same news. We all got the same information and we were all basically having more or less the same conversation. And now we're all having different conversations about different things and no two people can agree on anything. And I don't think that's an accident.
No.
So I think it's going to take a global event. It's going to take something massive to get everybody on the same page. And that's the only thing I could see that's big enough. Chris Bledsoe, you know, this is somebody else we haven't really talked about yet. Have you followed? Did you see his recent interview that he just did?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's saying 2026, something big is right around the corner. He said, you're going to just lose your mind when you see what happens. What is that supposed to mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to wait. I want it like now, please. I think we're all looking for a savior, you know, and then, you know, people will say nobody's coming to rescue us. Like nobody's coming. I don't know. No, I differ.
It's like this. I think of it like this. Now we can have, everybody's got their different experiences and opinions about COVID-19 and what happened. But one thing that we can all agree on, I think, I'm assuming we can all agree on this, is that when the lockdowns did happen, for a couple of days there in the very beginning, it was really weird. It was super weird because like no one was going anywhere. No planes were flying. No cars were on the road. But it was weird. But to me, I don't know about you, but to me, I was like, this is awesome. Can we just do this? Can everybody just like, can we just hang out and like not go to work? And like, this is wonderful. Everybody's riding their bikes and kids are playing outside. This is amazing. I think that during those initial early days of the COVID pandemic, when everything got locked down at the very beginning, before it got crazy and everything just went sideways, I think initially everyone got a chance to take a deep breath, stop going to work for a couple of days, spend some time with their family, decompress, relax, and just take it all in. And that's what people are hungry for. We realized in that moment collectively that there's more to life than this. Like this rat race sucks. Nobody wants to be on this thing. What could another world look like if we could just tweak it a little bit and maybe get to a place where we don't have to do this?
Exactly. Find a happy medium. Because I think in Europe, they nailed it down much better than Americans. Mm-hmm. They don't work as hard as we do. They take breaks more often. Their food's better. They don't have all these toxic ingredients in their food. So, you know, maybe we need to take a lesson from them in that sense. But I think that it's nice to pause. It was bizarre during that time. You know, you look at videos of Times Square, it was like there was nobody walking. There was just like a ghost planet.
I was in New York. I was in Grand Central Terminal and I'm walking around. There's birds flying around inside. There's not a soul to be seen. Yeah. And there's flocks of birds flying around in the ceiling. And I'm watching this and I'm like, what? I'm in a movie. And then like, you know, a month later, you're standing in line at the store and you hear the voice on the speaker and it's like, please stand 6 feet away from the next person. I'm like, what kind of movie is this that we're all in? This is crazy. And we never thought it would end. It was like it was going to just go on forever. And then one day it's over and we're all back to work. But now we work at home. And it's like, I think when everybody's working at home, we're sort of separated out and it's easier to get into your own bubble and it's harder to connect. People want to connect. They want to connect with each other. And I think at bottom, if what we're trying to do at my YouTube channel is it's that campfire story energy. It's like getting around the campfire with your friends and sitting down, and it's like, we're all going to tell spooky stories about the thing that we kind of all know is true. And we're going to connect together about this UFO because they're out there and they are watching us and they're interacting with us and there's things going on. And there's like, it's that feeling of connection. And I think that's what people are really hungry for. And I think we need a global event to connect people and remind them that, you know, we're more alike than we are different across the world.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny, but that feeling of sitting around the campfire and connecting in that way is genetically built into our DNA. That's what we did as Neanderthals, even, you know, through evolution. That's what we did. It was all storytelling, and, you know, your ancestors would pass down all these stories, and it was a way to connect. And you're right, we are missing that in a huge way. And
we just don't have that community anymore. Like, I think that's what's missing from, especially in particular in America, is like our sense of common community with our other fellow citizens is just not as strong as it used to be. It's still there, but it's not what it used to be. No. And I think our communities online, like your audience and my audience, and I think those people we're all looking for that connection together, and we're all real. In particular with UFOs, it's interesting because you have people from all walks of life, all educational backgrounds, all different levels of experience, young and old. It doesn't matter. They all, whether their politics are left or right, it doesn't matter, because they're talking about something they know is real and that they experienced or they believe is real, and they want to understand it. And that curiosity brings us together. And that's so refreshing in a world that just wants to tear people apart and divide us up. It's to feel that sense of like, we're all in this together. Yeah, you're not crazy. This is really happening. Those lights in the sky, that's real. Those ships that are coming, that's real. But now we've got to talk about it because it's here, and we have to have this discussion, and we need to get serious about it. And so I think that sense of mission and that sense of optimism is sort of wired into our community in a way that I think is very helpful and healthy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that infighting will stop too eventually as more and more gets disclosed. You know, you see some of that like on Reddit and whatnot, but I just ignore it when I see it. There's some amazing stuff on Reddit, like for folks that really want to dig in. You know, you could find some amazing UFO videos on there, too, UAPs and things that I've never seen before. And, you know, you don't know what's real and what's AI, but I don't know. The whole AI thing scares me. Like I sent you those articles.
Yeah.
Now, my son is a nurse, and he told me last year, he said, Mom, next year there's going to be AI doctors that are going to be diagnosing your illness. And, you know, you're not going to need to see the doctor anymore. And and they're talking about that now, right? I don't know. There's something about it that sketches me out. Like, I think there's going to be a group of us that are just going to resist that level of technology in our lives. Like, I don't ever want to get to a point where I'm seeing an AI doctor and I don't know how you feel about that. Would you be comfortable telling me?
I think, let's see, I'm 44 now. I think by the time I'm in my 60s, I think within 20, 25 years, you won't want to see a human doctor. You won't go to a human. Going to a human doctor is going to be like, you're going to want the AI doctor, because what's going to happen is there was a case this is just a few weeks ago. This is in the last 90 days of ChatGPT diagnosed a broken wrist in a little girl that the doctor missed. A little girl breaks her wrist. The dad takes her to urgent care. They go into urgent care. The urgent care doctor looks at the wrist, says, it's not broken. This is just a growth plate. They look at the x-rays. It's just that the way this looks. What she did was sprain her wrist, but it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. They leave the doctor's office, and the little girl goes home, and she's feeling her hand just doesn't feel right. Her wrist doesn't feel right. Something's not right. And she's telling her dad, like, I think it's broken. I think it really is broken. Her dad takes the pictures of the x-rays on his phone, uploads them to ChatGPT.
No way.
ChatGPT looks at these x-rays and goes, oh, that's absolutely a break. And then it says, this is what's wrong. It gives them a full thing. They go back to an orthopedic surgeon or an orthopedic pediatric orthopedic specialist who looks at the wrist and goes, Yeah, it's broken. It's totally broken. The urgent care doctor missed it, and ChatGPT got it right. Radiologists, all of these different professions that involve looking at data and trying to make a determination, cancer diagnosis, all of these different things are going to be. Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, just said in a presentation, I think it was yesterday, that within the next, say, 2 to 3 years, they are going to be able to design individual customized cancer vaccines for every individual person and give you an immunity to cancer. And they're going to develop this. AI will design the molecules of drugs inside its own simulation of biology. So they won't have to test on animals in the same way that we do now. This is coming. And what's going to happen in the next decade or two is we're going to reach a point, particularly by, I think, 2045, it'll all be said and done, where artificial intelligence is going to take over medicine in a way that we're not ready for. And what's going to happen is every time an AI does a heart surgery, it's going to get smarter.
Yeah.
All of the AIs will learn from the experience of that one surgery. So now imagine 100 million heart surgeries, all being done by robotics and AI. And every time it completes one successfully, it gets smarter and better at doing heart surgery. Eventually, within a period of months, it's going to be better than the best surgeons in the world at everything.
There's no denying that.
So you're going to come to a point where you might interface with a human doctor, but they are going to rely on AI to do a lot of what they do and do it better. And I think that's what we're going to see.
But how does that leave you feeling, seriously? Do you think don't you feel that that's going to lead up to the extinction of human beings entirely?
I think
make us, why do they need us? For what? If we can't even provide medical care, why do they need humans?
Well, what you're going to see is you're seeing it now. We're seeing humanoid robots that can walk and talk like a person. They move just like a person. They can play a violin. Their dexterity is they can play piano like a person. We've seen a quantum leap in robotics technology just in the last, say, 36 months.
Oh yeah.
This is only going to get better. The worst it's ever going to be is today, and they're already almost as good as humans. Now you're going to have unlimited intelligence, and unlimited robotic labor that can do anything a human being can do.
Absolutely.
And when eventually, which I think is going to happen probably within the next 25, 30 years, we're going to solve this fusion quandary, and we're going to get to some form of like unlimited energy, whether it's fusion or something else. You're going to have the 3 building blocks: unlimited energy, unlimited intelligence, and unlimited labor. When those 3 things are combined, for one, the working class will be obsolete. The entire middle class of America, of the whole world that does things, if you go to a job and you do anything, lawyers, anybody who reads stuff and has to write, content, all that stuff's going to be over and done with. The question is going to be, after that point, how do we build a new world around this new reality where people don't have to work anymore? You're going to have, think about this, ChatGPT, a PhD level AI at your fingertips. You're going to be able, and not only that, but they're going to have agency. You will be able to, instead of ask a direct question and get an answer, you will be able to give your AI a goal. You'll be able to say, I want you to brainstorm all of the different ideas for a company that makes whatever. And then I want you to create the marketing, create the product, build a logo, build the website, write all the content, create the ads, go out and then sell this thing. Or you'll be able to say to your AI, I'm going to give you $1,000. I want you to invest it until you get to $1 million. That's your goal. And you'll be able to turn it loose, and it will go out into the world just like an employee, and it will do that for you. And now you can have 10 of those, 100 of those. Now, what happens when everyone's doing this? If everyone knows that they can just give some money to an AI and send it out into the stock market and let it take control of your E-Trade account and make you a millionaire, how does that's going to break the economy?
Sure it will.
So we're going to have to come up with some kind of a new thing. I think that's why you're seeing this full court press that you're seeing right now, where all of the tech guys, all of the big AI billionaires are like rushing to Washington right now to try and like get their hands into this situation so they can carve up where we're going to be in the next 25 years because they see the writing on the wall and they know. Amazon warehouses they already have humanoid robots replacing humans in the warehouses. At a BMW factory, and I think it was in Louisiana, they've got robots walking around doing jobs that humans were doing, just 2 years ago.
But I want to know, how does that make you feel?
Nervous as a parent, because I don't know what my kid's going to have to learn to be productive and survive in this world. But it makes me feel optimistic because I think a lot of the problems that we're dealing with are problems of, we need more intelligence to solve the problems we have. We want that. We want, you want this. You're going to want this. You're going to want the extreme medicine that's coming. They're going to be able to extend the human lifespan by 100 years. You're going to feel like you're 25 years old and you're going to be 150.
Think about that. But think about that. Do you think that they, let's just say, want that really for the human race when they're already worried about overpopulating the planet, that we're over 8 billion people? I mean, do you think they want us to live forever while we just keep populating and populating? And the whole thing scares the life out of me, Clint.
It's scary because it's something we've never had to deal with before. We're going to build things. We've already built things smarter than us.
Oh yeah,
that's the truth. The computers now are smarter than all humans, and they are only going to get smarter. And this is going to happen faster than you can possibly imagine. This is going to be, how the internet changed everything, but it took 25 years. When we watched the internet start, and it was like America Online and dial-up modems, and then cell phones, and then it took another 20 years for cell phones to get really good. But during that time, it was a slog. It was like a long, slow process. This AI thing is going to happen in the span of like 36 months, maybe 72 months. You're going to see like just gargantuan. Every change is going to be an order of magnitude bigger than the change that just came before, and they're going to keep coming. You're going to see this go faster and faster, and like out of nowhere. Think about it, like the ability of us to respond to this is going to be, for one, I think it's going to make genuine human one-on-one, like real human connection more valuable, not less, because it will be the minority. We'll spend most of our time dealing with AIs. So when you do deal with another human being, it's going to be a bespoke experience. Like that human-to-human connection is going to be more valuable. But yeah, it's scary because I don't know, like, what is a child today? What pipeline do you get into educationally to be prepared for a world that's not even going to look anything like this world? I don't know.
I don't know. You seem to have more of a positive spin on it, or emotional investment in it. For me, I think instead of creating a connection for humans, it's going to separate us even further, because look at men now dating these robots and falling in love with these AI bots. I mean, people don't even know how to date anymore. They can't even go in a bar and just meet somebody because they don't have the skill set. Think about that.
Yeah.
I met my husband in a bar. Yeah. And I was married for 47 years. I met him when I was like 18. So, people just don't know how to do these things. And I think this technology scares me into the elimination of the human race. It just, I won't be here when it happens, but I have a granddaughter. You have a toddler. I mean, we think about that.
I agree with you. I think it is scary. It's scary. It's like crisis and opportunity. We just don't know how it's going to go. And yeah.
Absolutely. And I wanted to also ask you about, I'm a religious person. Like, I believe in Jesus, our Lord, and I don't want anything messing with my DNA. I don't want these. My sister and I were talking about this yesterday because the topic's so hot. It's everywhere. Everybody's talking about cure for cancer. I don't see it as such a magnificent thing if they're going to use mRNA technology to do that. I don't. Me personally, I don't want any mRNA technology. There might be some in me already. I don't know how they're depositing this to the human race. It might be in the food I'm eating already. It might be in the air I'm breathing. I don't know. But consciously and spiritually, I don't want anything messing with my DNA. I want to go out the way that God made me, with the same intact DNA. So for me, it's something that, like, if a doctor said, God forbid I had brain cancer, and he said, oh, we could cure it with an mRNA, I probably would pass and just say, let me go quietly into the night. Just for me personally, I don't.
But imagine, and I don't disagree with, in principle, I think that's a perfectly reasonable and respectable position to take. I don't have any issue with that at all. And it's going to be like that. Everybody individually is going to have to think about this and make a decision. But now flip that around and go, okay, what if it's not you? What if it's your 3-year-old who's got brain cancer? Now you're like, well, that changes the game for me. I would go, well, what can we do? Or, my wife lost her mother to brain cancer. She had a very aggressive form of brain cancer. It was just brutal. It's horrible.
That's horrible.
In a world like this, where people are, especially in light of the recent assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, people are done. They are fed up with this whatever this joke of a medical system we have. There's got to be a change. I don't know if the changes will be a net positive or a net negative, but my suspicion is that for each of us, there is a different. We all have our own situations, and we've all lost people that are close to us from one medical reason or another. If someone came to you in that last moment and said, we have something that might help, it's a 50-50 shot, would you do it? I think a lot of people will say yes. I think that's the reality. And the question I have is, in the end, is this going to be accessible to everyone? Are poor people going to be able to get this? Or is this going to be, you've got to be $1 million a year income to afford the cancer vaccine? You know what I mean? Is this going to be something that, a person who works a regular blue collar job is going to be able to get? And will their insurance company pay for it? All of these questions, we know that our system is completely broken and it is in desperate need of being just torn apart and fixed.
Absolutely.
But no one really seems to know how to do it. So what the hope is, I guess, that maybe by I was actually just telling my wife this the other day. We were having this conversation about ChatGPT, right? I'm not going to give out any medical advice. What I'm about to say is not medical,
Right.
But I was sick and I didn't feel very well. I was like, but I didn't want to go to the doctor. And I was like, we had some medicine in the freezer from leftover antibiotics from, the last time somebody was sick. A toddler, we're sick. We're sick every other week with a toddler. And I didn't recognize the bottle in the freezer. So I took it out and I took a photograph of it and I uploaded it on my phone, but just to ChatGPT. I didn't go to my computer, just on my phone. And I said, what is this? And it gave me it looked at the picture, read the bottle, gave me a detailed explanation of what was in it, what the symptoms are that someone who would need this would take, what the effects are, what the interactions are with other medications, some warnings. It gave me an answer better than a doctor would. It would be like if I had a nurse, a member of the family that was a nurse, and I could call them anytime and get nurse level advice. Yeah. That's in your phone now. So if you've got a phone, you have, whether anywhere in the world, you have a doctor that you can consult. If you have a broken bone and you're out in the middle of nowhere, but you have a cell phone signal, you can look up how to set a broken bone and you can solve that problem.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the best example, but that's an example of things that are possible now that just, you're going to see this stuff coming on so fast now. It's going to be every other week. There's going to be something new. We're in the knee of the curve now. This is going to start to seem like disorientingly fast how good technology is about to get. And it's going to be scary for a while. And then on the other end of it, one day you're going to be at the mall and you're going to see robots walking around and it's going to be like a normal thing.
We're in the beta process of experiment, because ChatGPT and all these other AI programs are wrong a lot too. I mean, they've told people to go off themselves, and they've said to use glue in your food if something isn't sticking right. You read that. So, like, we're like the beta testers of this all, and that's fine. I get that.
This is the dumbest it will ever be is right now. Yeah, and look how good it is.
It is. It's right. I don't know if I definitely don't trust it 100% yet. Yeah. I know there will come a time when we can. But
you're going to have it's going to take eventually, I would say probably within 5 years, you're going to have an AI assistant that will be like a ghost that follows you around. It will know all your emails. It will read all your emails. It'll know what's going on with your bank statements. You'll be able to talk to it like you and I are talking to each other. And you wake up in the morning and it'll just go, "Hey, Carol Ann, there was a weird transaction on your account. You might want to check that. There's an email from Bob. He wants to know about the thing you talked about 2 weeks ago. I went ahead and scheduled a call with him. I saw you had an opening on Wednesday. I made that happen. Don't worry, I'll remind you. Don't forget, you've got to pick up something at the store today." That's going to be your AI. They're going to be like a buddy. It's going to be like an assistant. And that's going to be really powerful for people to be able to have that. I think we just don't know how it's going to play out yet because we can't imagine. It's like living before the internet and trying to imagine what the world would be like in 2025. You just couldn't do it. You couldn't picture all the stuff.
How far will it be before that assistant is controlling your day and telling you what you should be doing and what you're not doing and what you can do better? And at what point do we not become human anymore? I don't know. I'm still wrapped up in the whole protect humanism thing. Like, I'm
with you. Yeah.
I can't escape worrying about our humanness. I can't. It scares me.
It's one of those things that is simultaneously fascinating and frightening, and it's coming no matter what. I think that's if that's what I'm trying to do, is just communicate this to people, is like, this is what's right around the corner. And you're already seeing it. It's just, it comes and it kind of like whizzes by, and then you'll hear something and, oh, ChatGPT. 3 years ago, there was no such thing as ChatGPT. There was nothing like this. And now we're all using it. It's like, oh, I wrote a crappy email. Here, can you read this and make it better? And it spits out in 2 seconds. Here's a better email.
Oh, I know. I use it for my writing. I use Grammarly, and sometimes I get annoyed at it because it's always yelling at me, to make a better sentence, and I'm saying this incorrectly. But there's so many tools that I couldn't do without day to day that are AI generated now.
I run my channel. I'm able to successfully run this channel because of AI that I have access to that can help me do the things I need to do. It's like having two people working for me all the time.
Exactly.
I couldn't do what I'm doing without AI right now. And if I was doing it at this level, I couldn't do it without AI. Yeah. And I think it's only going to get better. I don't know where we go from here. I think my big concern is like, if 3 or 4 people own all these AI companies, that's putting a lot of power in like 3 or 4 sets of hands. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
That's a big problem. And before we go, I want to ask you about this whole multiverse, because I could talk to you for hours. I swear.
This is a lot of fun. I like doing these.
You make talking to somebody so easy.
Oh, thanks, Carol Ann.
I mean that.
Likewise.
Thank you. You just do. It's just your persona. I don't know if it was the ayahuasca or whatever, but it's just so easy to talk to you, Clint.
It's the coffee.
It's the coffee.
It's the coffee.
I'm there with you. What about this whole multiverse thing? Since we're talking about AI, I hope you got a chance to glimpse at the articles that Google can prove that there is a multiverse and that we live in it. What say you?
We're going to see an acceleration of knowledge and understanding that is going to be like 1,000 years of progress that's going to take place within like 25 years. There's a great thinker on this. His name's Ray Kurzweil. He's one of the lead researchers at Google. He's one of the most famous inventors ever. He invented his resume is insane. He invented like the optical character reader that can read text and speak it out loud. Like, he invented all this stuff. One of the smartest people there is. he's saying that the next 25 years is going to be like 1,000 years of progress, because every year we're going to make more, we're going to have computers that were more powerful than what we had before to build the next round of tools. And this Google example is like that. This quantum Willow chip that you're talking about solved an equation in a matter of minutes that would have taken longer than the age of the universe,
right,
by a classical computer. Think about what that unlocks. That unlocks a box of possibilities now that humanity can reach into, and we can do things with this technology that we couldn't do before. We're going to see this compounding effect where that compounds with some other technology, which compounds with something else. And you're going to see, I think the first place we're going to see it is in medicine.
Yep.
It's very, very good medicines, very, very high-tech medical stuff. Is good. I think you're just going to see a revolution in the way healthcare is delivered and made more affordable to the average person, excuse me. But yeah, what Google's doing is, I don't know, I'm not qualified to speak on the science behind it, but I think in terms of what it represents and what it means, if it's as significant as they say it is, and it seems like it is, then we're looking at, we're moving very fast now. And where we go next is anyone's guess. But this is not going to slow down. It's not going to stop, and it's not going to turn around and go the other direction. We're only going to hit the accelerator from here.
We're off, yeah. Does it concern you that Hawking's back in, 2012, said if we don't stop this, it's going to be the end of the human race, in his words? He did say that. See, this is what freaks me out, is we've got all these brainiacs, including Elon, who warned us years ago. I don't know.
I think, unfortunately, I think what's going to happen with AI in the near term is that we're going to use it to do the things that we're already doing, which is try to sell each other stuff and try to make war. You know, that's usually what we do. We try to make money and make war, and make war so that we can make money.
Yeah.
What we should be doing probably is sitting down and trying to figure out how to solve really critical problems, like how do we make more drinking water? How do we make more, how. I don't know that we're going to get there. My suspicion is, and I'm not thrilled about this, but my suspicion is we're going to have probably another really nasty global war. It's going to be fueled by artificial intelligence and robotics and drones. It's going to be the most horrific thing we've ever seen. And then out of that, we will be, if we survive that, if we come out of that, then we'll be in a position where we're going to really want to rethink the way we've been doing things. And maybe that will lead to a positive outcome. But I don't know.
I love the fact that Trump told Zelensky, end this war, get on the ball, end the war. We have to stop this. What's happening on our planet, it's just a nightmare. Yeah. So, there's hope. There's definitely hope. But I don't know, maybe AI will discover that we do live in a multiverse, and that, have you asked AI about UFOs? I'm sure you have. What was their response to you? I have.
Just last night, I was trying to research something, and I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, can you do a deep dive on this individual that I'm trying to learn about? And I'm trying to figure out if they're still active, where they are. Can I contact them? Not in less than 4 seconds, it gave me a complete profile on this person. It gave me resources to look into for further research. It offered other suggestions for things I might want to know. And not only did it do all of that, but it found an email address for this person that I could contact that was not listed anywhere, a completely unlisted email address. And it gave me their email address, and it said, and then I clicked on the email address, the link where the email address comes from, and it took me to a blank page. So somehow ChatGPT was able to read the code of a website and then pull an email address out of it and then deliver that to me, even though if I was to go to that website by myself, I couldn't find the actual thing. So
it's embedded in code that you couldn't see, but ChatGPT saw it.
ChatGPT saw it. So when I use it to research things, I'll have it create an outline or a summary of a subject, and then I'll use that to build a show around. And I'll use, from there I can kind of start to build out. I've asked it about all kinds of different things. Interestingly, it seems to, because it's trained on the data that's already there, it's still kind of wishy-washy on whether it's a conspiracy or whether this is a real thing, but that seems to be changing now. And it seems to be much more accepting of what's been recently in the news. So yeah, I think it's a powerful tool.
Now, not that I'm being nosy, but do you pay for the like the premier version of ChatGPT, or do you just use the free version?
I use just the free version. I haven't even I haven't paid for the.
Hey, that kind of annoyed me, but
it's going to get cheaper. It's going to get eventually. It's going to be everywhere, and you won't even see it. It'll just be like in your phone. It'll be everywhere. It won't even just be in your phone. It'll be in your computer, your phone. It'll be in your refrigerator. It'll be in your watch. You'll talk to it like that movie Her. It'll be like a person that you just deal with. But a person who's got a PhD in everything, who is also able to read everything that was ever written in a few seconds and then give you any information you want. You'll be able to train, like you can train ChatGPT. I don't know if you know this, but you can train ChatGPT to be a therapist. You can train it to be to give you medical advice. You can train it to give you, I take a picture of my meals and I just say, what's in this? Like, give me the nutritional value of it. I'll take a picture of a plate and it'll go, oh, that's steak and eggs. And it'll give me the protein readout. It'll tell me how many carbohydrates.
To do that,
I told it how much I weigh. And then it's like, okay, give me a few other bits and pieces about you. And I gave it some information. It created a detailed health plan for me with my goals in mind. It gave me my workout schedule. It gave me what to do, what to eat, told me how much, when, and how to do it. It gives me advice. It checks in with me periodically. It'll just go, hey, how are you doing? You didn't upload your lunch today. Did you eat lunch? Or you could? We're getting to a point where it's almost like it is already like dealing with a person. Like that. To think about that, and we're at a point in this conversation where we're like, yeah, but it's still wrong every once in a while. But think about how significant it is that we've got this at all. This is unbelievable. Just 10 years ago, you tried to explain this to somebody, they would think you're crazy. Think about how bad Siri used to be. Or, like just how bad all of these little assistants used to. Alexa, you ask for a song, it plays the wrong song.
Oh, God, yeah. It's awful.
Now I can be like, can you just read all the books on chemistry and teach me about chemistry? And it'll go, what?
Talk about, downloading information. It's like we're getting that same thing without having to plug it in the back of our head.
That's the thing. Okay, so you mentioned Elon earlier. That's what scares me is when you start putting stuff inside your brain.
I was going to ask that.
I think that's what scares me because I don't like the idea that I'm going to have a piece of hardware in my brain that Elon Musk can access at any time, personally, like him. Like the Cybertruck bomber that blew up his truck in front of the Trump building.
Yeah.
That guy, Elon, tracked that truck and unlocked the doors remotely, which sounds great. I mean, good for him, like whatever, he's helping us out. But at the same time, it's like, this is one man who owns more satellites than the United States government personally, has his own space program. He has his own artificial intelligence company. He owns Twitter. He owns, a company that makes brain implants. Now, what happens when we've all got one of these things inside our head and Elon decides that he doesn't like something you've said on the internet? Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, I also, I'm not Elon's biggest fan. I got to say, like, he's impressive in some ways, but in other ways, this is what too much power looks like. Absolutely. I'll just say that. My personal opinion, Elon Musk has way too much power. We need to reel him in. This man is like out of control. He's in the White House now. He's like, I didn't vote for Elon Musk. Did you? Who voted for this guy? He's in there deciding what government programs he's going to cut. Well, he's cutting the ones that regulate the industries that he operates in. Yeah. That's not okay.
No, he's Trump's buddy.
That's not okay. It's not okay. I don't care what. And this whole like Nazi salute bullshit, I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little political here, but we all know what we saw. We all know what we saw, and I'm sorry, but I'm not on board. I'm not on board with this. We got to stop this train.
Can I? To me, when I saw that, and I've done that, where I'd be talking to somebody and I'd put my hand on my heart and go like that, and I think the way I saw it was like, my love to you, my love to you. And he's, because of his autism, because he is on the spectrum, he's very animated in ways that we are not used to seeing.
I don't buy that. And I don't, because you know what? He can't be the most brilliant man in the world and dumb. at the same time. It's not possible. You can't have it both ways. He did it twice, and I know what I saw. He did his Sieg Heil. He did a Nazi salute, and we can argue about what he did, but the truth of the matter is, this is what a man who's drunk on power looks like, and you're seeing it. And this is what it looks like. It's not good, and it's not okay, and we shouldn't allow it. And that everyone who fought in World War II, including my grandfather, rolled over in their grave when they watched this. You can't. What are we going to really, as a culture, going to look at that and go, "That's all right"? That is not okay. And there's got to be a red line. That's mine. That's my red line, and I'm not embarrassed to say it.
I hear your passion in that, but to me, like, first of all, the original salute looked like, I saw a comparison, a video, and they looked different, like just in the way the arm went up. And the fact that he put his hand on his heart first and then did that made me think it wasn't that. I don't know. Maybe
what's interesting is that no one else has ever had this problem. No one else has ever mistakenly done a Nazi salute and had to like explain it away. It's like, we all know what we saw. He knows what he did. I think it's like, I think we can analyze it and try to find excuses for this man, but I'm not in the Elon excuse business. As far as I'm concerned, Elon is a very smart man. That's fair. And he's very successful, and he's made a lot of money, and that's great. And he's made a lot of money for a lot of people, and that's great. But I didn't vote for this guy, for one. Two, and I don't know anybody who did, because he wasn't running for anything, for one. So you've got a guy who, donates $100 million to a political campaign. Now, it doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. This should never be allowed in any case. And now he's appointed to a position where he has power over real decisions that are going to affect regular people. To me, if you're worried about AI, you know why you should be worried about it? Is because the guy who owns the company that's making the AI is a secret Nazi. Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. That's not a secret anymore. Like, he knows what he did. This shouldn't confuse anyone. This is like, this is the part of the movie where it's like, we either have to part ways and go in separate directions because we're not seeing the same thing, or we have to agree that what we all saw was not okay, or we have to admit that some of us are okay with it. And I'm just not. I can't. That's where I get off the bus. Like, I have relatives who fought in World War II that fought the Nazis.
My dad did. My dad was in the same situation. I just did, when I first saw it live, I didn't make that connection. I just don't think that way, I guess. But then when everybody started talking about it, it made me wonder. And then I started making excuses for it, like you said, because he put his hand on his heart. And I thought maybe he was just going, my heart to you. But it was very like, I don't know, Clint, I don't know.
I would say this, do we know for sure that power makes people when they're drunk with power go insane? Yeah, that's a fact. Like, I think we can say without question, that's a fact. I think we can say for a fact that this man has too much power. He probably has more power than anyone else in the world. And I would say this, that's what a dog whistle is. A dog whistle is a signal that most people can't hear, but some people can hear. And a Sieg Heil salute is a whistle. It's a nod to a certain group of people that are okay with it. And it's saying, I'm one of you. You are like me. We are like each other. And don't worry, like, I got your back. That is frightening. And in America, in the United States, we should be able to spot a Nazi from a mile away, and we should say that's not okay. And if it is okay, well, then we need to take a hard look at the people who think that's all right. And we need to say, what are you doing here? But I just think this is a real problem, because we're blinded. We have this hero worship of billionaires. We think someone's got $1 billion. Well, they must be 1 billion times smarter than everyone else. I just don't agree with that. I think it's short-sighted, and I think it's misguided, and I think we're giving power. It makes the way that we judge people is based on this sort of arbitrary calculation of how much wealth they have. I just don't. I'm looking at the man's actions, and what I'm seeing is not impressing the shit out of me. It's really not.
No, I'm not an Elon fan by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't like the fact that he's in the White House all the time, involved in, like you said, I didn't vote for this man. I didn't vote for him. I mean, I think he's doing some interesting things. I would never let him put a chip in my head, that's for sure. But I don't know. But now that you brought up those points, it does look like a Nazi kind of thing, and I find that disgraceful.
Go on YouTube. Anyone can do this. Go watch a video of any Nazi giving a Sieg Heil salute and watch what Elon Musk did. Put the two windows side by side and tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm wrong. I'll wait. It's not. We're all shocked and blown away because he just did it. He just did it. He did the quiet part out loud, and now it's like. Now, listen, I wasn't suggesting months ago that I didn't think Elon was a secret Nazi. I didn't think that. I was kind of, as far as Elon Musk was concerned, I was like, this guy has too much power. We should reel him in. Absolutely. That's not okay. But I thought more or less he's just another billionaire, okay. But when he did this, he jumped to the top of my shit list because it's unacceptable. It's like giving everyone who has a relative who died in World War II, it's like giving them the finger. If you have a relative who died in the Holocaust, it's like giving them the finger. And the fact that he's surrounded by American flags when he does this, he may as well have, forgive my language, but pissed on the American flag. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that's what he did. So, as to what the administration is going to do with this guy, I don't think Elon's ego is capable of occupying the same space as Donald Trump. I just don't see how that lasts. But I've been wrong before, and maybe these two get along famously. I just suspect that within a few months, this relationship will sour and they'll go their separate ways. But who knows? I just know that rocked my world in a way I wasn't expecting. And I was just like, holy shit, this guy's for real. I cannot believe it.
How Vivek dropped off Doge and is now wanting to run for governor. So, see, I like him. I think he's a very decent individual, Vivek, and I wish him the best of luck. Maybe he was overwhelmed by Elon's ego too and figured there's not enough room here for the both of us. Who knows?
I mean, I just, no one person should be the center of this conversation like this. Like, we shouldn't be talking about one. This guy. He can decide the fate of a war. He can decide the outcome of a war. He can decide who gets satellite coverage and who doesn't. He can decide. And when you put a Neuralink brain implant in your brain, in your skull, remember, a guy like Elon is going to have your number in a system somewhere. He's going to be able to punch up your code and access your brain. That's really going to happen. And if he doesn't like something you said on Twitter, he's going to be able to go boop, 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 and just, let's take Carol Ann's chip and let's just slow her down a little bit, or let's maybe make an adjustment here.
Look at what people did with Ancestry DNA. My family did it except for me, my sister, my brother, aunts, uncle. I think you just sold your DNA to God knows whoever.
Mm-hmm. No, you paid them to take it. That's the other. They charged you.
And
that's crazy. You're right. You're so right. You're absolutely right on that. And now they've got your DNA in a database somewhere.
BlackRock owns your DNA. It's sitting in some vat somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's scary, man. That's what concerns me is like, the trajectory of society right now is not positive, and it's beyond politics. I'm not trying to make this a left or right thing. I'm just saying, like, you got to call things. It's that New York energy, right? You got to call it like you see it. When you see a guy make a Nazi salute, you got to call bullshit on that immediately. If someone's on the subway acting crazy and you're all in a train car together and, you're going down, you're on the D and you're going to work and somebody on your car acts up and gets crazy, everyone knows, and this is a New York thing, but this, everyone in that car knows, like, we got to deal with this guy.
Exactly.
We got to deal with this guy right now because we're all in this train together. And I think maybe that's something unique to New Yorkers, unique New York, that
that's a mouthful.
Living in a city that is so tight and reliant on each other, there is a camaraderie and there's a sense of like community that comes with being in that city that you just get. And eventually, there's like an attitude that comes with it. And I think, I don't know, like when it comes to acting crazy and doing crazy stuff, autistic or not, billionaire or no, I don't care. That stuff's not okay.
I agree. Well, we probably hit the 2-hour mark. And like I said, I could sit here forever and talk to you. Thank you so much, Clint. This was an absolutely riveting and fascinating conversation. I hope folks enjoyed it. And again, I'm going to have all your information once this goes live because this will be pre-recorded. But I will, of course, include all your links and places where folks can find you. And I will be in touch for our next chat.
Cool. Well, thank you, Carol Ann. This was great. This was a lot of fun.
It was awesome, Clint. Thank you so much. I will be in touch soon. God bless.
All right. Likewise. Bye-bye.
Take care, dear. Okay, folks, I believe we might well be over our 2-hour mark, but thank you so much for joining us today. And again, real quickly, welcome to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, where you can discover your truth. Thank you so much for watching. We are live once a week, and we do have a pre-recorded event taking place now on Fridays as well. And of course, I will have all that information for you. This is the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. So again, thank you so much. Give us a like, a thumbs up, and I better go. Thank you so much. Have a great and blessed